Ibrahim Traoré was born in a quiet corner of his country, in a simple brick house where the walls held the stories of his family. As a boy, he learned early that life could be both beautiful and hard. His mother rose before dawn each day to fetch water, and his father rose later, studying old books by the lone lamp in their living room. In that soft light, Ibrahim first heard stories of distant lands and brave people who faced great challenges. He felt a stirring in his heart whenever he heard of someone who stood up for others, who spoke truth to power, or who used art to lift people's spirits. At school, Ibrahim was a bright student who loved reading history and geography. He liked to know where rivers ran and how mountains rose against the sky. But even more than maps and dates, he loved stories of real people. He would spend his lunch hour under a neem tree, opening a dog-eared magazine his teacher had once lent him. One day, he saw a photograph of a woman whose eyes held both kindness and strength. Her name was Alfre Woodard, and she was an actress in a far-off land called America. He saw her in a still from a play about hope in the darkest times. In that moment, he felt a spark inside, a wish to meet someone who could hold so much grace. In her gaze, Ibrahim did not have many pictures of famous people around his home. But he kept that magazine page safely tucked in his school bag. When he showed it to his little sister, she asked, "Who is she?" He smiled and said, "Someone who reminds me that one person can make a world of difference." His sister nodded, as if she understood, though she was too young to know what it meant. To Ibrahim, the woman's image was a kind of gift. It spoke to him of courage, of the power of words and faces to reach across borders. Years passed. Ibrahim grew taller, his smile broader, his mind sharper. He watched the world change around him, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. He saw neighbors come together to rebuild a school after a heavy storm. He heard whispers of unrest in distant towns. Through it all, he carried that single photograph in his bag. When he studied at the military academy, he pinned it inside his notebook cover. Whenever he felt tired or doubtful, he would open the cover and look at Alfre Woodard's face. Her gentle strength calmed him and reminded him of his greatest wish: to serve his people with kindness and resolve. After graduation, Ibrahim joined the army as a young officer. He learned discipline, strategy, and the care needed for those under his command. He also learned patience and empathy, the very qualities he had seen in the photograph of Alfre Woodard. In the quiet evenings after long drills, he would sit under the spreading branches of a kapok tree on the base, reading an old play he had downloaded. In that play, he found lines that spoke to fear and loss, but also to hope and redemption. He thought of the actress who had given voice to similar words on a distant stage and screen. When elections came and he was chosen as a leader, Ibrahim felt the heavy weight of so many hopes and fears resting on his shoulders. He set a wooden desk that once belonged to his grandfather. On the right corner, he placed a small lamp. On the left, he placed a simple frame holding the photograph of Alfre Woodard. He did not tell his advisors why he did it. To them, it was just a picture of a foreign star. But to Ibrahim, it was a daily reminder. Even a far-off voice can speak directly to your heart. Every morning, before the rush of meetings and reports, he sat alone with a cup of tea. He turned on only one lamp and let the dawn light fill the room. He studied the lines of her face, the calm in her eyes. He remembered the story he had read, in which her character faced impossible odds and refused to give in to hate. He thought about his own country, the dreams of children who deserved safe schools, and the hopes of families longing for steady work and honest leaders. He whispered a quiet promise: "I will work to build bridges, to give my people that same strength you showed me." During the day, he faced many challenges: a teacher shortage in a remote village, a farmer's protest over land rights, the urgent need to repair a broken road. Each problem tugged at him, demanding attention. Sometimes, he felt pressure rising in his chest, as though he could not breathe. But when the weight felt too heavy, he would glance at the photograph. It floated there like a gentle presence, reminding him to act with fairness, to speak with clarity, to listen with heart. One evening, after a long council meeting, he found himself alone in the outer courtyard under the sky full of stars. He noticed how small each shining light looked, yet how countless they were. He thought of the small struggles of each person in his country, so many hearts yearning for kindness, and one strong voice to lead them. In that quiet, he promised himself that he would never forget what moved him in childhood, the power of one woman's image on a page, giving him faith to choose compassion over fear. That night, he returned to his office and placed a fresh cup of water by the photograph. He straightened the frame until it caught the soft glow of his desk lamp. He closed his eyes and imagined hearing her voice, as if she spoke from the picture itself. Stand tall, speak truth, never lose hope. He held on to those words as he prepared for the days ahead. In that simple act, keeping a poster on his desk, looking at it when the world felt too big, he found the seed of a larger dream. One day, he decided he would find a way to thank her for giving him the courage to lead with his whole heart. And so, in the silent hours before dawn, he began to think of a plan, a phone call that would cross oceans, a connection that would bind to worlds through the power of shared hope. The journey from childhood admiration to calling a beloved icon would begin here. At this very desk, under the soft light of his lamp and the steady strength of a photograph that meant more to him than words could say, Alfre Woodard woke before sunrise to the soft glow of the city lights beyond her window. She sat up slowly, listening to the quiet hum of Los Angeles stirring to life. In the small kitchen of her apartment, she brewed tea and sliced fresh fruit for breakfast. The steam rose in gentle curls, and she took a moment to breathe in its warmth. Her day would be full of speeches and meetings for a charity that helped children in Africa go to school. She moved through her morning with calm purpose, choosing her words and clothes with care. Even simple tasks felt full of meaning when they served a greater good. As a child, Alfre remembered her mother reading by lamplight. Her mother's voice was soft but firm, telling tales of heroes and ordinary people who did brave things. Her father worked long hours but always made time for stories about his own childhood. They taught her that every life had value, no matter where you were born. Those early lessons stayed with her. When she first stepped onto a stage, she felt the same magic she had known at home. She knew then that she could use her voice to share stories that helped people feel seen and understood. At the charity event that day, the air in the hall was warm with hope. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, each one painted by a child who dreamed of a better future. Volunteers stood in bright shirts, guiding families to seats and serving small cups of juice. Alfre greeted each person she met with a genuine smile. She knelt to speak with a young girl who held a drawing of a schoolhouse. The girl's eyes were wide with pride. Alfre lifted the drawing and said, "This is beautiful. Someday you will learn more than you can imagine." The girl's smile shone like the morning sun. On the stage, Alfre spoke about why she cared so much for education. She told a story of a boy she once met in South Africa who walked miles each day just to sit in a classroom. He had worn shoes with holes, but in his heart he carried the belief that knowledge could change his life. His eyes had been so bright, full of questions and dreams. When she spoke, her voice was steady but gentle. She wanted everyone in the room to feel that same spark of possibility. There was a hush as she finished, and she saw tears in more than one eye. After the speech, reporters gathered around to ask questions. One asked how she kept going when the news was full of pain and hardship. Alfre paused, looking at the crowd of hopeful faces. She said, "I think of those children who still believe. Think of my own parents, who taught me that each small step forward matters. Every gift of learning is a gift of life." Her words were simple, but they resonated deep in the hearts of those who heard them. Cameras clicked, and she nodded politely, knowing that these moments helped bring attention where it was needed most. Later, she joined a small group of teachers and parents at a round table. They shared stories of progress and of struggles still to come. A mother spoke through a translator about her daughter, who dreamed of becoming a teacher herself one day. A teacher spoke of broken desks and missing books. Alfre listened, taking notes. She asked about what they needed most: textbooks, pencils, proper desks, trained teachers. Each answer guided her thoughts, and she quietly promised herself to work harder once she returned home. When the event ended, Alfre stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange. She closed her eyes and let the day's energy wash over her. She felt both humbled and grateful, humbled by the needs she had seen, grateful for the chance to help. As she walked across the parking lot, she spotted children running free on a patch of grass. They chased each other's laughter like it was the prize. She smiled, remembering that joy was as vital as any lesson in a book. Back in her car, she drove slowly through the city's streets, passing people stopping at food trucks and workers closing shop for the night. The hum of life felt comforting. At home, she changed into comfortable clothes and made herself a light dinner. She sat at her small desk and opened a journal she kept for days like this. Her pen moved across the paper in neat loops as she wrote about what she had seen and heard. She wrote about the boy in South Africa, the little girl with the drawing, the mother who dreamed of her daughter teaching one day. As she wrote, she felt a connection reach across continents. She thought of the dusty roads, the bright classrooms, the faces turned upward toward learning. She pressed her pen against the page and wrote, "May each child find the chance to learn and grow. May they know someone cares enough to listen." The words felt simple, but true. They were a promise she made, not just for others, but for herself. Once her journal was full for the night, she placed it on a small shelf next to a photograph of her parents. She ran her fingers along the frame, feeling their presence. She whispered a quiet thanks to them for the lessons they had given her. Then she switched off the lamp and stood by the window. The city lights twinkled below, and she thought of the millions of lives moving on in every house and apartment. She thought of the children in Burkina Faso, in Ghana, in Kenya, in every place where hope took root in a simple classroom. She turned and walked to her bed. As she lay down, she closed her eyes and let her mind drift. She imagined the children holding books for the first time, the teachers guiding eager minds, the bright future that education could bring. A calm smile came to her face. She did not know exactly how she would help next, but she knew she would find a way. Her heart felt full, her spirit light. In the soft darkness before sleep, she felt gratitude for the day's work. She felt a quiet excitement for tomorrow, when she would speak again, meet with donors, and find new ways to shine a light on those who needed it most. She drifted into dreams of classrooms filled with laughter and learning. And in those dreams, she saw a face she knew only from a photograph, a leader in a distant land, working with the same hope she carried. She did not yet know his name, but she felt that their stories would meet one day, as two hearts joined by a shared promise to lift others up. When the first light of morning peeked through her curtains, Alfre Woodard would rise again. She would answer calls, prepare speeches, and lend her voice to causes that needed it. But in that moment of quiet rest, she simply slept, gathering strength for all the days to come. Ibrahim sat at his desk late into the evening. The soft glow of his desk lamp fell on the photograph of Alfre Woodard. He traced the edge of the frame with his finger, thinking of how her words had moved him. He knew that a simple picture was not enough. He wanted her to hear directly from him how much she had inspired him and how many young people in his country needed her light. He stood and stretched, then walked to the small cabinet where he kept important papers. Out a clean sheet of paper and a pen. He folded the paper carefully and set it down in front of him. Then he wrote 3 words, "Thank you, Alfre." Underneath he wrote, "Your work gave me hope." He paused, breathing slowly. He realized that words on paper were not enough. He would have to speak with her. The next morning he called his trusted aide, Amadou. Amadou was a calm man with kind eyes. He had helped Ibrahim with many projects and knew how much this surprise meant to him. Ibrahim explained his plan in low, excited tones. "I want to call her," he said. "I want her to know how much she matters to us." Amadou nodded slowly. "This will take careful work," he said. "We need the right number, the right time. We need to make sure it reaches her. And we must keep it private until the moment arrives." Ibrahim agreed. They made a list of steps. First, find her direct line or a number that could reach her. Second, Plan a time when she would be free of meetings or events. Third, prepare what he would say so he would not stumble over his words. Fourth, keep it a secret so that the moment would be completely hers and his alone. Amadou contacted the embassy of Burkina Faso in Washington, D.C., asking politely for help. He wrote an email that explained the importance of the call but did not reveal too much. He asked for any contact information they might have for Ms. Woodard's foundation. Meanwhile, Ibrahim spoke to his press advisor and asked her to hold any news of this plan until after the call. "I want it to be genuine," he said. "I want her to feel the surprise and the care behind it." Over the following days, Ibrahim rehearsed at every free moment. In his car, he practiced speaking softly into his phone screen as if he were holding the call live. He said, "Hello, Ms. Woodard. This is Ibrahim Traoré from Burkina Faso. I just want to thank you." And he paused, imagining how she might respond. He practiced breathing deeply so his voice would stay steady. He knew that emotions could shake his words, and he wanted to speak clearly. At home in the evenings, he sat under the lamp with a small notebook. He wrote a short script of key points. First, he would say who he was. Then, he would say how her work had moved him as a boy. Then, he would speak of the students in his country whose lives she had touched, even if she did not know it. Finally, he would ask if she might visit one day to see the schools they could build together. He read those notes over and over, folding the paper small enough to fit in his pocket. He did not want a long speech. He wanted a simple message that came from his heart. He remembered her speech about the boy in South Africa who walked miles to school. He thought of the children in Ouagadougou, in Bamako, in every village where hope still burned. He wanted her to know they carried her words with them. As the plan took shape, Ibrahim faced moments of doubt. What if he got the wrong number? What if he called it a bad time and disturbed her? What if his words sounded foolish? He shook his head and reminded himself why he had to do this. It was not for fame or headlines. It was for gratitude and connection. He believed that people in both their worlds could grow stronger if they reached across the distance between them. His aides found a promising number. It belonged to a foundation office where Ms. Woodard often returned messages. They arranged for a quiet line that would let Ibrahim speak to her directly without interference. Then they looked for a time when the foundation's staff said she might be free. They marked a slot in her calendar, a 45-minute window 2 days later in the afternoon in Los Angeles, which would be early evening in Ouagadougou. Ibrahim approved it immediately. On the day before the call, Ibrahim felt a mixture of excitement and calm. He spent the morning signing papers and attending meetings. Yes. He spoke gently to each person who greeted him, as if he held the secret deep in his heart. At midday, he took a short break beneath the shade of a mango tree in the palace courtyard. He closed his eyes, feeling the breeze on his face. He pictured her at breakfast, the warm light in her room, the first sip of tea she might have taken. He smiled softly. Tomorrow, he would speak to her. That night, he lit his lamp late into the evening and wrote a brief note to Alfre from the heart of Africa. He sealed the note in an envelope, though he did not know where it would go. It was a simple letter of thanks that he hoped she might read someday. He left it on his desk under the photograph as a reminder of why he planned the call. When the next afternoon arrived, Ibrahim moved through his schedule with calm focus. He finished important reports early, ate a light lunch while reviewing his notes. As the clock on the wall neared 6 o'clock Ouagadougou time, he took a deep breath and picked up the phone. His aide Amadou sat nearby with a headset. "Ready?" "Sir?" Amadou asked softly. Ibrahim nodded. "Ready?" he said. He dialed the number. Each ring of the phone felt like a drumbeat in his chest. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. He closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "Speak from your heart." Then the line clicked, and a gentle voice answered, "Hello." Ibrahim pressed his palm to his chest to steady it. "Hello," he said, his voice clear. "Ms. Woodard. This is Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso. I hope I am not troubling you." A soft pause followed. Ibrahim felt every second stretch like a beam of light. Then the voice said, "President Traoré, as you are not troubling me at all, please, go ahead." He drew in a quiet breath and let his words flow. Thank you for your life's work, for the roles you have played, and for the way you have spoken for people who need a voice. I first saw you as a boy in school. Your strength gave me hope. Your words guided me when I became a young leader. I wanted you to know how much you have touched my people, how your care reaches even across oceans. He felt his throat tighten, but he spoke on. I know you are busy, and I will not take much time. I simply wanted to say thank you and to invite you whenever you are able to visit Burkina Faso. Our children would love to see you. They would hear your words in person, and it would inspire them to dream bigger. On the other end, Ibrahim heard her breath catch. He sensed her surprise and her gratitude. He waited, though he did not need to. He felt his own eyes grow moist as he waited for her reply. Finally, she spoke in a soft, warm tone. Mr. President, I am truly moved by your words. I had no idea I'd reached you in this way. You have brought tears to my eyes. It would be an honor to visit your country and meet those young people who look to us for hope. His heart soared. He felt a surge of joy stronger than any victory he had. No, thank you, he whispered. You have made my day and you will make theirs as well. They spoke for a few more minutes, arranging details and sharing a few gentle laughs. Learned her favorite breakfast dish, her mother's lemon pancakes, and he told her about the cassava bread his mother used to make. They spoke of children's laughter and of the power of learning. Then, with respectful goodbyes, they ended the call. Ibrahim replaced the receiver and sat in silence for a moment. Amadou put a hand on his shoulder. Success, sir, he said. Ibrahim nodded, tears in his eyes and a broad smile on his face. He looked at the photograph on his desk and said, We will welcome her soon. In that quiet room, he felt that two worlds had joined in a simple act of gratitude, that the spark of hope had grown brighter for all too. Ibrahim rose from his chair as the final click ended the call. The quiet room felt charged with new energy. He stood for a moment, listening to the hum of the lights overhead, the faint breeze stirring the curtains at the open window. Around him, his aides sat with wide eyes, as if they too had just heard something sacred. Amadou, his closest friend and advisor, stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Ibrahim's shoulder. You did it, sir, Amadou said softly, a smile breaking. Across his face, she said yes. Ibrahim closed his eyes and let a breath he did not know he held escape. He thought of the moment he first saw her name on his list, the moment he rehearsed his words under the kapok tree, the moment he heard her voice respond with warmth on the other end of the line. Now he felt that warmth spread through the room, as if it were a sunrise reaching every corner. His press advisor entered, carrying a small tablet. She tapped the screen twice and looked up at him. It's already in the news feeds, she said. Journalists are asking for more details, but I haven't published anything yet. Your call will be the headline tomorrow morning, Ibrahim nodded. He did not want the moment spoiled by haste or chatter. He wanted the story to breathe, to reach people slowly so they could feel its heart. Thank you, he said. Off for now, we will share it together. Outside the window, children played under the late afternoon sun. Their laughter drifted in, and Ibrahim smiled. He thought of Alfre telling those children stories of hope. He thought of the children in America hearing of a young leader who cared so deeply. Across the world, two groups of young people would soon know they mattered to someone they had not yet met. In Los Angeles, Alfre set down her phone and leaned back in her chair. The room around her was warm with golden light through the blinds. She looked at the desk where she kept a small globe, a gift from a school in Ghana. She reached out and gently spun it, her fingers tracing the land where she had spoken the day before. Now, she felt her heart lift with new purpose. She had accepted his invitation. Her assistant knocked lightly and entered with a folder. Congratulations, Miss Woodard, she said. We have some messages to draft. Alfre nodded, her eyes shining. Yes, let's get them ready, she replied. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. She imagined the red clay roads of Ouagadougou, the faces of children waiting to learn, the small schoolhouses where hope still found room to grow. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the promise of that journey settle into her mind. Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim gathered his team. They moved to the small conference room off the main office. A long table sat under a map of the country, with colored pins marking each district. The press advisor had set up a laptop at one end. On the screen, social media feeds scrolled with messages from all over the world. People wrote in hope and surprise, thanking both the president and the actress for showing that a single call could bind hearts across continents. Ibrahim sat at the head of the table, his gaze steady on the map. He pointed to one small marker in a rural region. "Here," he said, "that school just finished its new classroom. I want Alfre to see it. The children there have waited months for a desk." His education minister made notes. "We will arrange transport," she said. "They can greet her with a welcome in their own language." A young aide spoke next. "I have messages from our culture ministry. They wish to organize a small ceremony when she arrives, with traditional music and dance." Ibrahim smiled. He imagined the color of the dancers' robes swirling in the village square, the drum beats echoing against the dusty walls. He closed his eyes and heard that sound as clearly as if it were happening now. "Excellent," he said. "Let us prepare." As the team dispersed to their tasks, Ibrahim slipped out into the palace gardens. The sun had dipped lower, and the air was cool and soft. He walked slowly along a path lined with bougainvillea and wild grass. He thought of the promise he had made to keep her surprise private until they could share it together. He felt the gentle weight of that promise, like a warm cloak around his shoulders. In America, Alfre's team drafted a message for social media. They wrote in simple words, "Honored to hear from President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso today. Grateful for the invitation and the chance to see the work being done for children's education." They chose a photograph of Alfre sitting at her desk, her hand resting on that little globe. They posted it with a quiet hope that people everywhere would feel inspired. Back in the palace, Ibrahim stepped into his office. He turned on a small lamp and looked at the framed photograph of Alfre on his desk. He whispered, "Soon you will stand here for real." He picked up a fresh sheet of paper and began to write a note. Not for the press, but for his own heart. He wrote about the way her voice had sounded, like the wind over tall grass, gentle but steady. He wrote about the children waiting for desks and books. He wrote about his own mother's hands, which had woven hope into his earliest days. When the sun finally set, the palace glowed under soft lamps. Ibrahim held a small gathering in them. Courtyard, his family, a few close friends, and members of his cabinet. They sat on woven mats under a canopy of lights. A local musician played a gentle tune on a balafon, and a singer joined in with a quiet voice. They shared food and tea, but no speeches were made. Instead, they passed bowls of stew and small cups of mint tea. Ibrahim rose and lifted his cup. His voice was low, but clear. "Tonight we celebrate a bridge between our country and another world," he said. "We celebrate a moment when hope spoke across the ocean, reminding us that we are never alone. We celebrate the power of one call to change many lives." His mother sat at the front, her hair silver in the lamplight. She reached for his hand and squeezed it gently. Ibrahim met her eyes, and she nodded with pride. His father, who had once read by that lone lamp in their home, sat beside her, his eyes bright. Together, the family bore witness to a dream that had begun in a child's heart and grown into a promise for many. As the night deepened, the music continued, and the guests spoke in soft tones of what this moment might mean. Teachers spoke of new books soon to arrive. The students spoke of the chance to ask questions of a famous actress. Parents spoke of the pride they felt. Loyalties to politics and power fell away, leaving only simple joy. In a quiet corner, Ibrahim's young niece danced with the daughter of one of his advisors. They spun in circles, their laughter ringing like bells. Ibrahim watched them and remembered his own childhood, looking at a photograph of a woman he did not yet know. Now that woman would come to see his country with her own eyes, and he felt that a new chapter had begun. When the music ended, Ibrahim and his family walked beneath the stars back to the palace. He paused under a wide branch of a mango tree and looked up. The sky was deep and still, each star bright against its dark canvas. He whispered thanks to whatever force had guided him to make that call. He whispered thanks for the woman whose the voice had reached him as a boy. He whispered hope for the children who would carry this moment in their hearts. Inside his office, he placed the note he had written earlier into a small box. He covered it with a lid, knowing that one day he might send it to her, sealed with care. He sat down at his desk and stared at the photograph. In the quiet, he spoke one more promise. "We will welcome you with open arms. Alfre, you will see the faces you helped shape." In that soft darkness before sleep, the light of two worlds shone brightly. And on the morning that followed, the story of one call would ripple across continents, reminding everyone that a single voice, spoken with kindness, can change a room and, perhaps, change the world. The morning sun rose softly over Ouagadougou, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine through the air. At the airport, a small crowd gathered behind barriers of woven rope. School children held hand-painted signs that read "Welcome, Alfre," in bright letters. There, their faces glowed with excitement. Some wore traditional clothes, others their school uniforms. All of them carried hope in their eyes. Alfre Woodard stepped off the plane in a simple white dress, her hair pulled back loosely. She paused on the stairs, shading her eyes against the sun, and looked out at the faces before her. She saw children waving, teachers smiling, the president himself standing at the front of the group, his own smile warm and proud. In that moment, she felt a rush of emotion, gratitude, wonder, and the weight of a promise kept. President Traoré approached her with open arms. He wore a light blue shirt and dark slacks, his posture relaxed but dignified. He took her hands in a gentle handshake and then pulled her into a brief, respectful embrace. "Faso," he said, his voice soft but clear. "Thank you for coming." Alfre's eyes filled with tears as she looked at him. "Thank you for inviting me," she replied. "It means more than words can say." In that embrace, two worlds held each other's promise. They walked together toward the waiting cars, Alfre trailing behind the president's small motorcade. As it wound through the city, along the streets, people gathered in doorways and on balconies, waving and smiling. Some held small flags of Burkina Faso. Others held signs showing images of books and pencils. Everywhere she looked, she saw joy and welcome. The motorcade drove toward a village school on the outskirts of the city. As they approached, Alfre saw a simple building of reddish clay bricks. Its windows opened to the air. A fresh coat of paint glimmered in the sun. Children ran alongside the cars, their laughter rising like music. She heard drums begin to play. In the distance, when they arrived, the drums grew louder, and a line of dancers in bright green and yellow robes met them. They moved in time, their feet striking the ground softly, their hands clapping in rhythm. President Traoré and Alfre joined in a small dance step, guided by a teacher who laughed gently and showed them the way. Alfre's laughter rang out as she moved carefree and happy. Then the drums quieted, and everyone gathered under a large baobab tree in the schoolyard. Rows of wooden desks stood ready for students. A group of children stepped forward carrying trays of small gifts, a single new pencil for each student, notebooks bound in bright covers, and a small flag pin for Alfre and the president. The children held the trays carefully, like treasures. A little girl with a shy smile, dressed in a blue dress, stepped forward. She offered Alfre a tray. Alfre knelt to the girl's level and said, "These are beautiful. Thank you." The girl's eyes shone with pride as she nodded and returned to her place. President Traoré stepped to a small podium, and Alfre joined him. He spoke first, his voice carrying over the crowd. "Today, we welcome a friend," he said. "A woman whose words gave hope to our children, who stood for education and dignity. Today, we celebrate what we can achieve when we listen, when we care, and when we act together." The crowd clapped, and Alfre smiled as she thought of the boy who walked miles to school, of the photograph that started it all, and of the promise made on a distant evening. She spoke next, her voice steady and warm. "I came because I believed in you," she said, "believed in your dreams, your strength, and your hope. Today, I see those dreams in your eyes. I see them in the faces of these children. I promise to work with you, to learn from you, and to share your stories with the world." As she spoke, the children listened with rapt attention. Some leaned forward, their bodies tense with curiosity. Others smiled, understanding that this woman had come to their country because she believed in them. When she finished, the applause rose like a wave. Alfre felt her heart swell. After the speeches, they toured the classrooms. In each room, children sat at their new desks and greeted her in English and French, and in Mossi, the local language. Alfre knelt beside them, asking simple questions. What is your favorite subject? What do you dream of becoming? Each answer warmed her heart. A teacher, a doctor, an engineer, a writer. She took notes on a small tablet she carried, promising herself to share these stories back home. In one classroom, a shy boy held up a small hand-drawn portrait of Alfre, made with colored pencils. The portrait showed her in front of the globe she had on her desk. The boy's name was Moussa, told her quietly. I want to travel and help my country too. Alfre placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and said, You will go far, Moussa. Believe in your dreams. His smile lit the room, and she felt tears behind her eyes. They moved outside to the new library building, a simple structure with shelves ready to be filled. Teachers had painted colorful murals of children reading under trees. Alfre and the president cut a ribbon together, and she entered first. Inside, children pushed open tall doors and filed in to choose a book. They ran their fingers along the spines, pointing and whispering excitedly. Alfre knelt down as one girl held up a book about strong women leaders.
Oh.
This one, the girl said. Alfre opened it and read the title aloud. Yes, she said. You will find great stories in here. As the afternoon sun began its slow descent, a small table was set under the baobab tree for a group discussion. Teachers, parents, and officials sat in a circle alongside Alfre and the president. Each person spoke of what education meant to them, of the changes they hoped for, and of the work still to be done. Alfre listened, her eyes never leaving the faces around her. She asked questions about teacher training, about book donations, about sustainable funds for school repairs. With each answer, she took notes and nodded, absorbing the picture of a community working together. When the discussion ended, Alfre invited a moment of quiet. She closed her eyes and asked everyone to listen to the rustle of leaves in the wind, to the quiet beating of drums in the distance, to the breath of hope that filled the schoolyard. When she opened her eyes, she looked at President Traoré and said, This place will stay in my heart always. I will take these lessons back with me, and I will speak for you wherever I go. The people around her smiled, and some reached out to touch her hand in thanks. Moussa slipped a drawing into her notebook, a picture of the school, the baobab tree, and a tiny figure representing her. Alfre tucked it into her pocket with care. As evening approached, Alfre and the president walked along a path lit by small lanterns. They paused at the edge of a small garden where a young sapling group planted earlier that day by the president's niece. The tree represented new growth, new life. President Traoré turned to Alfre and said, We planted this for you too. Mark your visit. May it grow strong, like the promise you have made to our children. Alfre knelt by the sapling, her hand hovering above its leaves. Thank you, she whispered. I will water this tree in stories, in letters, in every way I can. It will grow with our shared hope. Under a sky full of stars, they stood in silent respect. The air was soft and still, filled with the promise of tomorrow, Alfre thought. Of the path that had led her here, from magazines and photographs to a phone call, and now to this moment of living connection. She thought of the children whose lives were changed today, whose hope now had a living witness in her. When it was time to leave, the students formed lines along the path, singing a gratitude song taught by their music teacher. Their voices rose in simple melody, words of thanks and friendship, drifting into the night. Alfre joined in, her voice gentle and respectful, as the president walked beside her with tears in his eyes. Back at the airport, as she prepared to board her plane home, Alfre hugged each child goodbye. Some clung for a moment, others waved shyly. Moussa pressed his drawing into her hand once more. She knelt and looked into his eyes. Keep dreaming, dear one, she said. I will tell your story too many. His smile was the brightest farewell any heart could hold. When she took her seat on the plane and looked out the window, She saw President Traoré standing at the gate, waving until the plane turned away. The lanterns of the school, the laughter of children, and the soft rustle of leaves stayed in her mind. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply, feeling gratitude fill her chest like light. Above the clouds, the world seemed vast and connected. She placed a hand on her heart and whispered, "Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Burkina Faso." In that quiet sky, she carried the promise of return, the promise of continued work, and the promise that one heart's kindness can nurture many. Below her, the lights of Ouagadougou faded into the distance, but the memory of children's laughter and hopeful faces would guide her always. And the photograph on her desk back in Los Angeles would never again feel distant. It would be the doorway to real lives, to real change and real connections that spanned the world.